And the Constitution, what it did was it put limitations upon that 14th country in relationship to the original 13 colonies and the sovereign people. It basically said, look, we're the sovereign people, okay? And these are the sovereign states. We're going to create, through the Constitution, a corporation and a national government to serve the sovereignty. And you have a very limited authority and limited jurisdiction. And anything that we don't spell out in this Constitution and say that you have the power and authority to do, we're going to reserve it to ourselves through the 9th and 10th Amendments. There's nowhere in the Constitution that says that the federal government has health care or education or agriculture or any of these other areas that they have encroached upon our lives. It doesn't spell it out there. Quite literally doesn't say anything about it. And so when the country was founded, it was for very, very limited jurisdiction. It was meant to be limited. And the Constitution was like a federal employee handbook, instructing the federal government what its job description was, and that it could not go beyond its job description, period. And so, the concept, which is a misconception that most Americans have, is that the Constitution gave you rights. Most people think the Constitution is what gave you rights. That's what they teach in school. They teach you that America started with the Constitution. They barely even talk about the Declaration of Independence anymore. They don't even mention it. They just believe that it started with the government, that the government suddenly is the sovereign power and the people aren't the sovereign power, which isn't true. The Constitution didn't give you any rights. You already had all the rights you could possibly use before the Constitution was created. You had unalienable rights. All the government can possibly give you are civil rights. But what the government can giveth you, the government can taketh away. And so it's not an unalienable right, which is one the government can't give you and can't take away. They're natural law, natural rights, common law. The right to walk, to breathe, to travel, to do commerce. All these derive from the common law. And no government can regulate those. That is a paramount distinction here, very important, between an unalienable right and a civil right. Because a sovereign citizen has unalienable rights, not constitutional rights. The most that a U.S. citizen can have are civil rights, which are rights given by the government. Most people aren't aware that U.S. citizens did not have a right to a trial by jury till 1967. If you're a U.S. citizen, you didn't have a right to a trial by jury till 1967. Well, that's strange. I always thought I had a right to a trial by jury. No, you don't. The sovereign people do. The sovereign people have the unalienable rights under the common law and the Bill of Rights, but the U.S. citizens do not. In fact, the U.S. citizens don't have a Constitution or a Bill of Rights at all. The only ones who have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights are the sovereign citizens. Because again, there's this relationship here. It was the sovereign people that created the Constitution. If there are no sovereign people, there is no Constitution. There is no Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is separate from the Constitution. The Constitution is a commercial contract between the states and this corporation. The Bill of Rights was a treaty between the corporation and the sovereign people. If there are no sovereign people, there's no treaty. There's no Bill of Rights. And so all that remains is, for most people, is to pay lip service to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And you hear people taunt them all the time, oh, I've got this, I've got that. But really there isn't any, by law. And these have been adjudicated in the courts. These distinctions that I'm talking about, who has the Bill of Rights, who doesn't. There are different rights and immunities for a sovereign citizen versus a U.S. citizen. So when was a U.S. citizen created? The U.S. citizen was created by the 14th Amendment in 1868, one of the Reconstruction Amendments after the Civil War. Now the Civil War was a pivotal point in American history. And most people believe today, as they're teaching, that Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator and all that, it was all about freeing the slaves. That is what we are taught. And although the slaves were freed at the conclusion of the Civil War, it was not from some great ideological or moral purpose that they were freed. It was more of an economic sanction to cripple the South than it was some great moral and ethical purpose. The real purpose for the Civil War, the reason it was fought, it was over the issue of state sovereignty. That's why the Civil War was fought. It was fought because the South, who had not fared well under this constitutional contract, and the federal government that happened to be in place, and the European powers that were influencing the federal government and the industrial North, were preferential to the industries and the commerce of the North and deferential to the South. And so the South said, hey, we're getting the bad end of the deal here. We want to secede from this union. We want to revoke this contract that we created. The states created the Constitution, remember. They wanted to revoke the contract and secede from the union because it wasn't serving them any longer. And then the federal government and the European powers behind that in the North, of course, crushed the state sovereignty and the secession movement of the South. That was why the Civil War was fought. And from that point to the present time, there has been a continual assault upon the sovereignty of the states and the sovereignty of the citizens. And as time has progressed, more and more and more of the sovereignty